Hello and welcome into the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. My name is JP, joined as always here by Elijah. And how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, JP. It's been a little while. Been more relaxing, enjoying a little bit of a summer break. I went to the beach, and things have been going well, and I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, thanks guys for joining back here with us. Yeah, of course, he was at the beach. We both had a little bit of a vacation there, and I had my birthday, had some other stuff going on, but I had the little break right before things ramp up for draft season. We are ready. NFL is looking like it is happening, and we're ready to get back into the role. And a lot of stuff has happened. There's been a lot of news in the last couple of weeks, and preseason, completely cut. There's gonna be no preseason at all. Washington used to be the Redskins, are now nameless. They're just the Washington football team. I'm sure they're going to figure it out next year, see what the name's going to be. I mean, I know your dad, Eli, is a big Redskins fan. I mean, do you have any thoughts on what the Redskins are doing?
I mean, if you look at their new logos that they released, the nameless logos, I mean, you have a lot of that speculation around that big W and the words you put there, Warriors, as one thing that's been really going around a lot. And I wouldn't mind Washington Warriors. I think that's not a horrible name to hear. And I know my dad's just like, whatever it is, it is. And I mean, you make jokes like, I'm going to trade teams when I listen to this, though, but it doesn't really matter for him. And I think he's going to be a Washington fan either way. And I think that's how all people should feel. And, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the Washington Warriors would be good. I like that good old alliteration there. I've also seen like the Red Hawks thrown out. That'd be cool,
Nice.
Yeah, I like that. They got the red, already to their whole brand, for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
But also, next piece of news we have is the NFL and the NFLPA came to an agreement, and it looks like football is happening, barring any changes,
Mm-hmm.
which is so exciting because, in the back of your minds, when we talk about all this football, fantasy football implications, it's always in the back of your mind, like, man, what if there's not football? And right now, it looks like there's going to be football. Like I said, there could be things that change. Games could be canceled, but the NFL, they have the advantage of watching the NBA and the baseball and seeing what they do, see what mistakes they make, and they can learn from that. I think that gives them a great benefit. And they've been doing a lot of things, implementing, procedures to help have an NFL season. I know you've had some concerns about it too, so you want to voice those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I was always concerned if they're moving too fast or getting into things, but made me happy that they kind of actually canceled preseason, which may not sound best for those new rookie rookie draftees that you'd want to see what they could potentially do or add to the team. But the safety first is definitely something I'm was concerned about, and I personally wouldn't even mind if they went to that 12th game schedule that they were talking about as an in between, but seeing them glass the locker rooms. He sent me a picture of that and precautions that they would take necessary. If they're doing all the right things, then I feel like I don't have too much to worry about then.
Yeah, and you guys can look that up. I sent that to you specifically, but the Lions, they released a picture of their locker rooms with barriers, and it's really cool. I'm glad to see it, and of course, safety is first. We all want football, but we want everybody to be safe too. But our last piece of news, of course, as we were talking about COVID-19, there's a lot of players that are opting out, and I know you as a Patriots fan have had a lot of Patriots opt out, unfortunately. But it is what it is. And of course, there's been some fantasy implications we have to talk about because of these opt-outs. And the biggest one of them all is Damian Williams because of what it means for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And, the hype train is rolling on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's going to be gone in the first round, if not beginning of the second round. I mean, being in an Andy Reid offense that likes to feature one guy, Patrick Mahomes-led offense, very, very explosive. And he was drafted with their first pick. And Patrick Mahomes wanted him. Andy Reid asked him, said, who do you want? And he said, Clyde. And they got their guy. And what are your thoughts on him for this upcoming season?
I mean, I think I voiced this in some sort of other video of the potential output that he could have similar to Kareem Hunt as someone that's super effective and has that pass catching capability, even with the high flying air raid offense that most people would know them by. But it's it's just bright future for Clyde, and your only concern was what was could be the split between the two, and like you said, one's gone for safety reasons, but it just shows the huge what we're trying to say, a huge output that you can see from Clyde.
Yeah, I mean, it just gives so much clarity to the backfield. Like we said, we don't know what the split was going to be, but this
Mhm.
clears it up. And I mean, it's very exciting for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And you said they're a very pass-heavy offense, but he's a great pass-catching back, and he fits the scheme so well. So, Kareem Hunt, I made a post on our Instagram at FFFanatics11. You could check it out. But we saw when Kareem Hunt, when he came in, when Spencer Ware went down his rookie year, I think he was the RB4. And so he's a top 5 running back right off the bat. We see rookie running backs have success all the time, so you shouldn't be scared of a rookie running back. And I don't Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he could have the same workload that Kareem Hunt had, like on the ground, but I think he will get more through the air, which is even more valuable because he's a great pass catching back. I think Kareem Hunt's a little bit of a better runner, but I think Clyde's a better pass catcher. So it's gonna be
Yeah,
interesting. I'm excited to take him the first round. I would take him in my rankings. He is my 6th running back. I have him outside of those top 5 guys. I just think he has huge upside, and since he has that pass catching work locked down, he's going to be game script proof, and I think he's going to be safe. He's going to have that safe floor week in and week out.
yeah. I think that Kansas City Chiefs, their offense is rolling on all gears that you could possibly think of. I don't know what that saying is, and they're gonna still be top dogs throughout this year. And if a wide receiver goes down through unfortunate reasons, they, that just would boost Clyde even more. And your ceiling with the running back six, I think that's an accurate description of what he could possibly do.
Right, and since this is such a high-powered offense, his touchdown upside is so high. He could
Mhm.
score so many touchdowns, and oh my gosh, it's very exciting because um, touchdowns are king in fantasy football. And when you have an offense like this, and he's on a winning team too, so it's very exciting for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I
Yeah.
honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him finish as a top 5 running back this year. Very exciting, but we got some other players to talk about too. Not quite as buzzy as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but Devin Funchess, he opted out, and he was going to be fighting for that number 2 wide receiver spot for the Packers with Allen Lazard, but he opted out. So it looks like Allen Lazard has a clear path as the number 2 wide receiver, and Aaron Rodgers likes him. Last year, when MVS and Geronimo Allison were trying to win that number 2 job, he advocated for Allen Lazard, even as a rookie. Lazard was a rookie, and Rodgers advocated, say, "Hey, put him in the game." And that's big for Aaron Rodgers because he needs to trust his receivers. We've seen him get really frustrated with his wide receivers, always grimacing. We see him all the time grimacing. it's
Yeah.
so it's just so Aaron Rodgers. So that definitely makes Alan Lazard worthy of a late round selection. For the upside that he could
Mhm.
present.
Yeah, again, I don't want to like keep bringing up that we talked about this stuff before, but we did bring up MVS and Geronimo Allison and how what their output was that we thought they were going to do compared to them not even really doing anything. And you have Alan Lazard, he kind of snuck in the background towards the end of the year last year, and you kind of saw his name flying around then. And just the Packers, you always think they need wide receiver depth. They didn't do it through the draft. It was a huge mistake. They didn't do it. They haven't been doing it for the past every year since Aaron Rodgers has been like, "Can you help me on offense for like 1 year?" And they got their defense pretty stable right now. So you would have wondered why they still didn't add the depth. But having him there and having someone that QB is vouching for is definitely very important.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, moving on, we got also Marquise Goodwin. He opted out, and well, also we've seen Alshon Jeffrey. He's been on that active PUP list. That doesn't mean for sure that he's going to be starting the pup list to start the year, but he's not playing right now. And with Marquise Goodwin out and potentially Alshon Jeffrey to miss the beginning of the season, Deshaun Jackson and Jalen Rager, they look like they're going to be the top two wide receivers on the team, and they're going very late in drafts right now. So you can pick them up and potentially get a flex player in the 10th plus round. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, he's being ignored because of his age and the injury, but he could be that number one wide receiver in the team, and he also has had injury problems. So Jalen Rager is also very intriguing, could step in to be that number one guy. So those guys, they're definitely worth a flyer late as well because like it's a good offense, and they could be the number one or two guys on that team.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you see me looking down. I have like annoying fly on my keyboard. But anyways, I think the Eagles are very interesting because, like you said, they've been going in late rounds. But then you wonder like, what's something that boosts the top wide receiver? And if you have excellent quarterback play, that's something going to help. And Carson Wentz, amazing quarterback. I very injury prone, but when he plays, he's top tier talent, I would say. And the Eagles wide receiver room, I really could see that Jalen Reagor by second or third week, Deshaun Jackson could get an injury. I think it's very likely, and I think if you pick up Reagor, that you have strong output for someone that's not going to get competition as well as a wide receiver that is going to be in that one category, like you said.
Yeah, he could see the most targets out of any rookie in this whole class because of his situation and the fact that he has such a good quarterback like Carson Wentz. It's very intriguing. So he's probably the top rookie wide receiver I'm targeting. Him and Jerry Jeudy might be there at the top for me. But yeah, he's definitely more intriguing now.
Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman's up there. Yeah, I know he's
Mhm.
probably your number
I
one.
know he is my number one. I just had to throw that out there.
I
But
think I think at this point, since Rager has a clearer path,
mhm,
I think that I would take Rager over Pittman. But Pittman is also very intriguing.
yeah,
I still do like him.
I I definitely understand. And one more thing is that with their situation, the Eagles through all off season and the draft, they're like, are you gonna like get us a quarterback? Are you gonna get us a safety? Are you gonna get us this defensive help if nothing's happening on the offensive side? And I mean, they addressed it slightly, but you're not going to see that defense really on the field that much compared to what the offense is going to have to do, which could help Raker as well.
Yeah, I don't think that they added Darius Slay through the
Yeah.
trade, but I still don't think their defense is going to be top tier or anything.
Yeah.
And
Not
I have
not
to go
sorry,
ahead.
not to discredit Darius Slay as like slightly, but they definitely need a lot more help than what Darius Slay was adding.
Yeah, for sure. But also with this news, I think it helps Miles Sanders because we saw at the end of the year he was
Mhm.
very involved in the passing game because there's no weapons, and now he's probably going to have to be used more so in the passing game because they're in the same situation as last year almost.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we also just had a piece of news that kind of just broke right before we recorded, and it was Antonio Brown. He's going to be suspended for 8 games this season, and I know some people might have been drafting him at the very end of the draft with their last pick in hopes that he would sign with somebody.
Mhm.
But of course, he's super talented, and we could see a team have a top tier wide receiver go down to injury. Maybe they'll add Antonio Brown, but I'm not going to hold on to him for 8 games in hopes that he signs with a team because you're going to need those bench spots for waivers, especially this year more than ever with players going on the COVID-19 IR list for 2-3 weeks. You're going to need the depth more than ever, and week 1, 2, that's when you need the waiver spots to add to your bench anyways because we see players like Marquise Brown last year. We've seen George Kittle in the past or James Conner. There's always these week 1 guys that pop that you want to take a chance on. So
Mhm.
you're going to need to have somebody on your bench that you can drop near the end if they're not presenting value early on. So I personally wouldn't roster Antonio Brown right now.
Yeah, I mean, everyone at this point who knows anything about the NFL or all of that, I mean, Antonio Brown was turning into a celebrity towards when he was in the top of his class, and it's very unfortunate. Best wishes to him, of course, and you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, didn't he say? I'm not really too caught up, but I thought he said he was going to retire, and I don't know if that how much true that is, and um, I really hope he does come back for a year where he's just good in health and capability, and that when he does play, it's just all play, no nonsense. And if that happens, I think everyone want that like fantasy ending for someone that had such a great start to his career. But that's besides the fantasy fantasy point. And like you said, waiver wire. I mean, if you wanted to, I guess, try to fool someone into you pick up a Tony Brown and be like, hey, I heard news that he's going to do something. I mean, you could do that, but a more stable and secure thing to do would be get those players that, if certain things happen, injury, um, team change, stuff like that happen where they could shine. If it doesn't happen or their role in the offense was what you thought it would be, you just drop them. And that's what you're basically saying.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to roster and hold Antonio Brown for all that time, especially if he misses, if he's not on a team by like week 3 or 4,
Yeah.
and then he gets the 8 games, and then he's not back till like week 11, 12, then, I mean, maybe he'll be there in the championship for you if you need him, but that's going to be him just coming right back. He's too much of a risk, and I don't want to hold on to him for that long. But yeah, he's retired and unretired at least twice, maybe 3 times. I don't know. This dude's a little out there sometimes with what he does. But do you have anything else to say about Antonio Brown?
No, I think the only thing that I was agreeing on more was I think everything that could possibly be said about him has already been said by us or other people. And like, I think just agreeing with your getting a person that could have potential value if a whole bunch of things happen or have their role be defined in your first week. And that's something you talk about a lot. If it's not defined or there, and being able to get that waiver wire pickup with that person that can you just throw away, that's a lot greater than someone that you have no idea what could happen with their role till the 8th week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, the depth is definitely more important this year. All right, well, moving on, we're going to be doing a little section of buy or sell here.
It's
And
not where I
first
thought
up,
we were going. Okay, good.
first
Okay.
up, all right, buy or sell. Calvin Ridley's a top 15 wide receiver.
Um, any. I now remember you said you could do something like this. On the spot, I probably would say buy with Matt Ryan's up here and take a risk there towards, you have Julio Jones, but I think with what they have on offense and the capability and balance, that they could produce something like a Mike Evans, a Chris Godwin um, type output. So, and I think Calvin Ridley's severely underrated with the touchdowns that he's been getting. If he got a little more of just the like average amount of passes or I don't know
The volume.
volume, yeah, then I think his upside could possibly be even greater than Julio Jones. Not to discredit Julio Jones, but touchdowns, where are they for him? And it's just you never know. I would buy just because of how much potential that offense has.
Yep, I actually have Calvin Ridley in my top 15 wide receivers, so I am buying that. And they got no more Mohamed Sanu. Austin Hooper's gone. They brought in Hayden Hurst, sure, but Calvin Ridley is bound to see more volume. And when Mohamed Sanu was gone last season, he was a top 10 wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, until he got injured. So I'm very excited for him this year. I have him in my top 15, so yeah, I definitely buy him.
Yeah, just saying, I still think Julio Jones is better than Calvin Ridley. Everyone just knows his touchdown dilemma that he has. Yeah, just
Yeah,
put that out there.
but yeah, it's just the touchdowns we're talking about. All right, well, next up, Odell Beckham, buy or sell as a top 15 wide receiver.
I mean, you saw that recent thing come out with Jarvis Landry. I mean, that's would have maybe affect the first week or second week. Um, top 15. I'm gonna sell just because I think he's probably gonna fall 16 or 17th with that offense. I know you're a lot higher on him than I am, but
That's fine.
who I can see above him with that's not really splitting as much ball work as he is. Uh, I just don't think he's could be exactly in the top 15. I think he's be really close to that. But with the volume and that offense being more towards a run-heavy type offense now, I mean, they're really balanced, but I think they've been leaning more towards the run. I don't see him really getting into the top 15 with maybe his volume. I think he'll be very effective with that split of volume.
Well, yeah, I mean that's fair, but
Yeah.
I have him as a top 15 wide receiver. As you said, I'm a little bit higher, but his range of outcomes is very big. He could finish as a top 5 wide receiver or outside the top 20,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be too surprised either way, honestly. But yeah, I have him as the top 15 wide receiver. He's at wide receiver 13 for me. So yeah, I am going to buy him. But like I said, his range of outcomes is out there. He's a little more risky than a lot of these guys. But I just think the second year with Baker and being healthy, I think that he's going to have a good year personally, bounce back.
Yeah, I know that when we ranked them, I could say he was, I think, around my wide receiver 17, 18. So he was right up close to that, but he just didn't really get past that 15 for me.
All right. Well, moving on, DeAndre Hopkins, top 5 wide receiver, buy or sell.
See, I feel like you're asking this because it's a trick question, and now I'm thinking of who the top wide receivers that could possibly, let's say, out five him. Uh, you have Julio Jones, Devontae Adams,
Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas. Yeah, sorry, Saints fans, just trying to think hard. I mean, he was put around number 4, number 5 for most of this offseason. And I would still definitely put him there, even with going maybe to a more competition heavy offense. I think he's going to be the clear touchdown leader, red zone threat. Amazing talent. I don't think you can discredit him at all with Kyler Murray and the balanced offense that they may have. And I'm definitely a buy. And I really am blanking on the other top wide receivers right now. But it's definitely a buy for me.
Well, yeah, okay. So I have him as my 5th wide receiver, but I'm actually going to sell it because I think that there's a really good chance that some wide receiver pops and breaks into that top 5. I just think that Kyler Murray and that offense spreading the ball to Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, and Larry Fitzgerald, Kenyon Drake. I think that the volume is going to be down a little bit. I think he'll be a top 10 wide receiver, but I just think that for like PPR purposes, I don't know if the receptions are quite going to be there, but yeah, he has a very good chance of having a lot of touchdowns. But yeah, I'm just going to sell it. I just think he'll finish just outside of it personally.
Wait, so who do you have above him? Wait, do you have a potential breakout that you're thinking of?
Not one specifically. I like DJ Moore a lot, but
Yeah,
you got Julio Jones, Adams, Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill. But every year, there's somebody who pops and just really breaks out. So I mean, it could be getting Kenny Galladay, DJ Moore, like I said, Odell Beckham. I think that somebody will pop and push him outside the top 5.
DJ Chark. Who knows? Yeah, I know we just threw that. I just threw it out there because we've been so high on him. But
Yeah.
I definitely can see your viewpoint on that, and I still think he'll fit in. But yeah, I definitely can see your viewpoint.
Yeah. All right. Well, last one here of our wide receiver buy or sells, DK Metcalf, top
Mhm.
25 wide receiver buy or sell.
Um, hmm. Where's he been going? 27, 28, probably.
Well, his ADP has been rising. He's actually like right up there with Tyler Lockett.
Oh dang. I guess you.
But what do you think? What is your belief?
Yeah, I'm not. Uh,
He's going as wide receiver 19 in ADP.
yeah, I'm. I'm gonna sell. I know there's a lot of DK Metcalf fans out there, but I feel like we talk about Tyler Lockett, and I see all these knocks in Tyler Lockett. Like the Seahawks don't really even pass the ball that much. Like he was just very effective. I'm like, even if he goes towards DK Metcalf, or you can knock him the same way. And I think Tyler Lockett is more effective chemistry with Russell Wilson. Still, I bring up the discredit of the playoff game after DK Metcalf had that playoff game. The questionable injury status of Tyler Lockett those 3 games that he didn't necessarily do well. Um, I think Tyler Lockett just has better chemistry, better effectiveness, red zone threat than DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf is that boom or bust type wide receiver that probably just needs a little more consistency that I don't see in this year or two. And I think if anyone's going to win that battle, it's going to be Tyler Lockett, and that's still going to be wide receiver 2, 19, 20, 21 type status. So I don't see him really falling into that top 25.
I chose guys here that I thought we would disagree on, and you'll probably be surprised that I am buying DK
Fine. Yeah.
Metcalf. Yeah. And so the reason one of the biggest reasons why is because he led the NFL in red zone targets last year. We know that Russell Wilson, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the whole league, and he's been working with DK Metcalf in the end zone too. So, of course, you got that big body. He's just a huge monstrous man. I think he's gonna catch a lot of touchdowns. He had 900 receiving yards as a rookie, and I think that this is going to be a team not quite to this level, but percentage wise, I think that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett will have like 50% of the whole team's targets. So I think they'll each get a fair share. I've been rising on both of them recently, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They're both in my top 25, actually. But like I said, their volume isn't as much as the Buccaneers with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. But I think that they're going to get like most of the targets on that team between those two players. And yeah, I'm gonna buy him. Actually, he had 60 receiving yards in 9 NFL games last year. So that's surprising. I was like, wow, he was that consistent with his receiving yards last year. So yeah, I think he could have a big touchdown total this year, and I'm gonna buy him.
All right.
All right. Well, getting into our main segment here,
Yeah.
we each chose 5 players with league-winning upside. So there's gonna be 10 in total, and these are guys. We had a debate before this,
Mhm.
and because we were talking about some potential players to put in here, and I was arguing. I was like, these guys are values. I want guys with league-winning upside, guys who could finish in the top 12, the position, and win you their league. Which, I mean, values. You named some great players that were good players to target, but I was just targeting pure upside in this episode. And my first player is Ronald Jones.
Mhm.
And he's gotten some buzz lately, and they actually just signed LaShawn McCoy, which might throw some smoke on his hype. But Ronald Jones, I read a lot about him recently, and there was this great article from CBS, and we know Ronald Jones. He had a terrible rookie year. It was not good. He didn't get a lot of volume anyways, but he didn't perform very well. But his agent hooked him up with this trainer. His name is Neil, and he met with him last offseason. So before 2019, he met with Ronald Jones, and he said this of a skinny Jones when the two of them met in March of 2019. He said he was a great athlete, but no one taught him how to play the game of football. USC just gave him the ball. His high school just gave him the ball and said run. He said, I looked at him at 206 pounds, and I said, you're a running back in the NFL? You're too skinny. He said, you know what? Let's put some weight on you, man. Let's put you at 215, 218. So that's what he did. That's what he played at for 2019. He added about 12 pounds to his frame. And Neil was actually his personal chef when they were together, too. So he was optimizing his diet. And Neil said this, too. Fortunately for us, when Ronald put on the weight last year, he got out there and ran a 4.4, the fastest he's ever ran at that weight. If you can believe, he's more explosive now than he was last year. So with that weight, he was even faster than he was when he was thinner. And you got to keep in mind, this is 2019. In 2020, this offseason, he's actually put on 8 more pounds. So he's up to 225. So that makes him the biggest running back on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think he is primed to be the starter, first off. But I think he's got the best chance at being that goal line running back. So with the Tom Brady-led offense, which I expect to score a lot of points, I think he could have a lot of rushing touchdowns this year. So then you think, okay, well, what about his pass catching? So they worked on it a little bit last year, but there's a lot of hype this year. He's using the jugs machine. And Neil said of last year, Ronald Jones, no one taught him how to catch really until he started with him last year.
Mm-hmm.
His trainer literally had to teach him how to catch the ball. It's nuts. But last year, after doing a little bit of training with him, he came off a year where he caught 81.6% of his targets. He had 10 yards per catch and ranked 5th in yards per route run with running backs with at least 35 targets. And he blew away last season's passing down back, Dare Ogunbowale, in all 3 categories. So I just think he's a better pass-catching running back than Dare Ogunbowale, and he's working on it even more this season. So lastly, we got his weight, his pass in his passing game, but lastly, we know with Bruce Arians, if you can't pass protect, you're not going to stay on the field, especially when you have Tom Brady at quarterback, somebody who is not very mobile. Last year, Ronald Jones ranked as the 53rd out of 60 for PFF's pass blocking efficiency measures. Yeah, it's not good. And so how much did Jones work on his pass protection heading into 2019? Neil said none. We didn't have time. He didn't even work on it at all in 2019. So how often is he working on it for 2020? Neil says every day, twice a day on Fridays and Saturdays, working on his pass protection every single day. And his only competition is third-round rookie running back Keyshawn Vaughn and Dare Gumbawale, and now a very, you know, old LaShawn McCoy. It just looks like dust now. He wasn't even active in the Super Bowl because of how bad he's been performing. So if he can just pass protect better than somebody like Keyshawn Vaughn, who's coming in on an abbreviated off season, then I think he's going to see the field a lot. And Keyshawn Vaughn, there's been some hype for him as a receiving running back, but he did okay in college. He wasn't like exceptional. So I think Ronald Jones has a chance to be the goal line starting running back who also receives work in the passing game this season on a Tom Brady led offense that's going to be very, very explosive. So I think Ronald Jones has that top 12 upside, and he's going in like the 7th round, and he could be going even later now with LaShawn McCoy being there.
Yeah. Well, that concludes our segment, folks. Seems like we've run out of time. I'm kidding. Uh, uh, Man, I mean, can I really add anything? I think you could cover anyone
You don't need to.
that much in depth. Then what more can I say? I think actually what you were saying, and just something that popped in my head. I don't have any statistics for this or anything, but something I've noticed from the Patriots and Tom Brady is no knock on Tom Brady, but the amount of times they would get to like the 3 to 1 yard line in the red zone, it just seems like he might be maybe slightly less effective as a passer in the red zone. Um, It'd be surprising because his slants, his intermediate throws, um, but they did run the ball a lot. He could always get down to that short yardage goal line situation, and if what you're saying is true, being that bigger back on the team, and I'm not saying it's not true. Definitely statistics prove that. But being the bigger back, he's definitely, if that maintains consistent with the Tom Brady type play, he could have a lot of situations where he's going to be that 1-2 yard punch to get into the end zone. So that could scream a lot of potential fantasy output for
His
him.
upside.
Yeah, as his upside. And another thing is you say that he's working on all this and pass catching, pass blocking, stuff like that. And as much like I love when players work on their weaknesses in the off season and they'll just like hone on what they're good at. Um, I think that's great, but I mean, my only concern would be, he is just working on these things, and I'm not quite too sure like how much one off season is going to be compared to those people that were already good at it out of college and stuff. So as much as I love what he's doing, my only concern is how good is he still going to be at pass blocking with just one off season, or how good is it really going to be with pass catching compared to he may outshine the Buccaneers, but like who knows the other running back you said? I don't even know who he is. So I think that he has potential. Like,
Exactly.
huge
That's my
potential.
point.
I know potential, but I do have a concern with just the limited time that he's had to work on things. But
But
I know you're looking
this
for potential. Yeah.
yeah, this is year 2 now working on the pass catching. He worked on it last year too. And last season in 2019, he was the best pass catching running back on the team. Like he improved a lot from 2018. So if he
Mm-hmm.
even makes a minor improvement to 2019, and now he has a quarterback that checks it down to his running backs. We see, James White, he could see his passing volume, increase a lot. He doesn't need to be, top 5, top 10 pass catching running back in the league. All he's got to do is be the best on the team. And same thing with pass protection. He just has to be the best one on the team to see the snaps, to see, that workload. Because, like I said, Keyshawn Vaughn, I don't think with this abbreviated offseason, I don't think he's going to be a fantastic pass protection running back. Most college guys aren't right out of college. And plus, with Ronald Jones putting on that weight, I think it's going to help him even more in pass protection. Like I said, it's not something that's guaranteed, but yeah, it's just the upside. I think he's got a lot of upside this season.
Yeah. Potential. I remember that word, potential. I think one thing I wanted to bring up before we get into the next player is that you brought up that little debate that we had. And I was looking at potential more for average draft position. If they are drafted as like a running back 3 or 4, I think they're going to consistently perform as a high running back 2 or be very great at that. I never really when we kind of came up with the segment, I wasn't completely clear on what we were necessarily doing. So I was like, like if I had like these three players and all of that, all performing about their ADP, I could like, league winning type teams, which I didn't was the thing like this person's gonna boom, this person's gonna boom, but just that they all are gonna outperform whatever you drafted them at, and if you have a whole team of that, yeah, I mean that's gonna be pretty close to winning the league. So
Yeah, like this isn't values. Like these are guys that aren't guaranteed. These guys are risky who have the upside, to win your league. Is pretty much what I was trying to drive my point for.
And I guess what I was kind of playing from is that I was looking more for a little more guarantee of what I could see compared to like huge risk but high reward
Just the
type
upside, yeah.
players. And something with Ronald Jones is I wasn't as I mean I'm not as guaranteed, but if I just like clear my mind, I definitely can see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all about the upside this episode.
It
So
is.
let's just go ahead and keep rolling though. We don't want to take too long talking about one specific player. So who you got first?
Oh well, my first player is the wide receiver of the Dolphins, one of them, Devontae Parker, and there is people will probably wonder now that we've mentioned this, like huge risk. Like, wasn't he like an amazing wide receiver last year? And well, I've often spoke highly of him and his consistency last year, how he averaged around 55, 60 yards a game. And the consistency was what he was always losing with his other years. I think the new coach really helped. But anyways, your concern would be is he did that with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and if they want to play Tua, how great will their connection be there? How much will they actually throw the ball with the rookie to get him acquaintance? That's not the right word. To get him put into that system, they're probably gonna slow it down a little, have him throw, at the beginning, like probably just like 10 to 15 passes a game, and then slowly build himself up from there. Um, you could see his downside. Really, you're like, oh, he could really have a huge downside. But I think that his boom potential through the what was your word? The type off season, start with the A.
The abbreviated off season.
Abbreviated off season. Ryan Fitzpatrick is definitely going to start. I think depending on how he does, you might have a thing where until he starts doing horrible, they might not even put Tua in. So you could have a lot of upside in Devontae Parker there. And me believing in Parker as a wide receiver and his talent, I think that he could still pull consistency out of Tua too. But I think that consistency and what he did have more with the new head coach rather than him as a player, I think no matter the quarterback, I think his head coach will get a lot out of him.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, Devontae Parker has lots of upside. He was a league winner last year. I
Yeah.
mean, he finished top 12 last year, and if you started him from week 5 on, you had, I think it was top 10 wide receiver. He was great last year. And his upside, he has that same upside this year, but yeah, there's just the risk of the quarterback and Preston Williams coming back and whatnot. But yeah, he has top 5 upside. We saw that at the end of last season. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was like a top 5 quarterback like in fantasy, like when he took over from Josh Rosen. Rosen, I think, is like week 4, week 5. And from that point on, he was a top 5 quarterback. He's a gunslinger. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Devontae Parker, he's got that big body, and he can win in those contested catch situations and in the end zone. And we saw last year, he looked like a much better wide receiver than any year before. He looked like he evolved. He leveled up, right? He improved a lot, and that's what we're looking for in these upside league winning players. And he's going in like the 5th, 6th round now, despite how good he did. So yeah, he's got a lot of upside.
Yeah. And again, I realize I still keep getting stuck in like a consistency type mode. I'm not thinking boom or bust. And yeah, I think he has amazing potential as of last year. I just had to bring up his consistency as in another video where I talked about his knocks that they're like, well, he was never consistent before this past year. I think the fact that he could stay consistent for a whole bunch of games was amazing. And how he finished as, what was it, more, he hit the top touchdowns or close to tied. I don't know. Um, but I just see huge things as well as consistency.
Yeah, I mean, in years past, he played with injury, played with Adam Gase. We don't know if he wasn't quite on the level where he needed to be yet. I don't know, but he just looked much improved last season. But yeah, he definitely has the upside.
All right.
All right. Well, my next player that I have is Cam Akers. And this is the rookie running back that the Rams took in the second round, and that was their first pick in the whole draft. So you tell me, if they drafted Darrell Henderson last year and they believed that he was going to be the workhorse running back, why would they spend their first pick on a different running back? I mean, come on, that just tells me that they do not believe in Darrell Henderson. He could hardly get on the field last year. He couldn't even surpass Malcolm Brown, who is a solid veteran, and I think they brought in Cam Akers to be that workhorse. They saw, okay, Todd Gurley's gone. Like I said, they didn't have a first round pick. They said, oh, well, let's bring in our workhorse running back. So that just tells me they have faith in the guy, first off. But last season, Darrell Henderson, he caught 4 passes. Malcolm Brown caught 2. I mean, these are not guys who are amazing pass catchers. I think that Henderson's a little better than Malcolm Brown, but I think Cam Akers is better than both of them in pass catching. We saw last season that he caught 3 passes a game, which in college they don't pass to the running back as much as they do in the NFL. So 3 passes a game, that's a pretty good amount. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire had like 4 passes a game. So we saw Cam Akers, he has the potential in the receiving game, and that Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown didn't really prove it. Gurley had 31 receptions last year, but for some reason they just were not targeting him. Gurley was actually top 10 in the league in routes run for running back, but he was just never targeted. And I don't know if that was maybe the Rams saw something and they just wanted to use him as a distraction. You know, they're like, oh, Todd Gurley, we've used him in the passing game before, and he's been used heavily in the passing game before. So maybe that's what they did. I'm not exactly sure, but McVay has had a history of passing to the running backs before last season. So I like Cam Akers' receiving upside first off. And Gurley last year had 14 touchdowns. He wasn't the player that he was before, but he still had 14 touchdowns. This just shows me that the offense in the red zone, it's either usually Cooper Kupp or they're running the ball. And like we've seen with Todd Gurley before, he's been so valuable because he gets those goal line carries. And Akers can do that too. He had 18 touchdowns in 11 games last season. And Todd Gurley, he had 223 carries last season. This is a very pass-heavy team, but I think that they figured it out more so at the end of last season when they had more 12 personnel. And a lot of people speculate they could run more 12 personnel, and that would help Cam Akers even more to have tight ends in there as opposed to wide receivers blocking. And that offensive line was also very young last year, had some injuries, so there is optimism that it can improve a little bit. But the fact that he has the receiving and touchdown upside, that's what makes me believe he could finish as a top 12 running back and be a potential league winner. Because Ingram last year, like I said, Gurley had 223 carries last year. That's a pretty good amount, not a ton, but Mark Ingram last year finished 11 last year in points with only 202 carries. And it's because he had a lot of touchdowns. I just think Cam Akers has that touchdown upside as even more receiving upside than even Ingram had. So that is why I love Cam Akers this season. And I just believe in him as a talent, too. He was one of my favorite guys coming out of college, too.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on all the points that I was going to bring up. I was going to say he was one of your favorite players, rookie running backs coming out of the draft. That the one major thing that you already brought up was the 12 personnel. I think it really helps running backs and wide receivers. I think Sean McVay and his mastermind, he came up with a set that made the defenses really guess, what are they going to do? Are they going to run? Are they going to pass? And then are they going to pass to the tight end? You just don't know. But they've really made something now where they can get those running backs going. And I think one concern could be is like, oh, they could have like a split backfield. But I really think from the Rams this year, it's not a split backfield. It's a competition to see who's going to be that 3-down back. And I think Cam Akers definitely could define that as him being one of those more well-rounded running backs in the draft. And yeah, huge passing potential, huge upside. There's nothing more I can really say.
I wasn't going to say anything else, but I just thought of real quick. Sean McVay, there's a quote out there that said he wants to use a 4-man committee. But yeah, he can want to do that. But I honestly think that ultimately means he wants his running backs to compete. I think he wants them to come in. He wants one guy to win the starting job. I just think it's an open competition. There's no way he's going to run a 4-person committee. And like I said, I think Cam Akers is the most talented. And I think that's what McVay wants, is for him to prove it.
I think a 4-man committee might be a little bit of some coach smoke. I don't think – I mean, you have committees. There could be 2 or 3. three at the max. I can't really believe that.
Right.
Yeah. All right, moving on to my number 2 pick, Alexander Madison of the Minnesota Vikings. And this is where I got into understanding this huge potential high output of this segment. And what happens if Dalvin Cook goes down? What happens if he holds out for a super long time? Um, you have Alexander Madison waiting right there, just like, I'm going to do this. Let him do what he wants. And he has set in an offense that has a pretty great offensive line that is super run heavy, and he's shown to be effective whenever he's been put in as as a reliever of Dalvin Cook, or when Dalvin Cook did get slightly injured. He was doing great before he got injured as well. And just huge upside towards this run heavy offense. I think I would relate it more to the Texans you had last year. It's not really about having the greatest running back. He doesn't need to be the greatest running back. Is if he gets all that bulk and all that carry, then he's still going to exceed to being a running back 1, running back 2, being a league winner with his high ceiling if he's put in.
Yeah, I think they like Alexander Madison. I think he's pretty good. He was a rookie last season, and he showed that he was pretty good as a rookie. And we've seen Dalvin Cook has had an injury history, and there was reports that he could hold out, but he's returned, so it looks like he's not going to hold out. But like I said, the injury is still a concern for him, and I think that Alexander Madison could step in and be like 90 to 95% of what Dalvin Cook was, and be a plug and play top 12 running back.
Yeah. Nothing more to say.
All right. Well, next up, I have Latavius Murray. Last year, we saw what happened when Alvin Kamara went down. Those 2 weeks when Kamara was out, Latavius Murray was the number 1 highest scoring fantasy running back in those 2 weeks. Better than McCaffrey. Better than McCaffrey and Aaron Jones. And he caught 5 passes in one of the games and 9 passes in one of those games. So he was involved in the passing game. He can do it. The Saints use the running backs in the passing game. And I wouldn't expect, him to be the number 1 running back. That's a small sample, 2 games. I wouldn't expect him to be number 1 if Kamara went out. But I think he'd be a plug-and-play top 10 running back when he's the lead dog, if Kamara were to go out. And he actually had 180 touches last season, despite Kamara missing 2 games. So he doesn't have, like, zero value when Kamara's healthy. And we've seen Kamara and Ingram. They both finished as top 6 running backs that one year. And I think those days are long gone now. But Drew Brees is getting older. They could start to rely on the running game more often. And if the touchdowns flow away from Drew Brees and more to the running backs like they have in the last couple of years before last season, they could potentially both be top 20 running backs.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to bring up going into talking about Latavius is I think I'm going to talk about Sean Payton and how he's an old dog, but he kind of does what I think it just has his name in my mind. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan. You see how Kyle Shanahan can get the most out of his running backs because of the cross plays, the different schemes he has. And I think Sean Payton is kind of underrated in that department. Is if you see what he's drawn out and the plays that Alvin Kamara has been able to do, or his running backs, the way that Latavius Murray exceeded his expectations was that he had these schemes that allowed him to shine. And I think Sean Payton does such a great, well-balanced offense that he does have some players that moves around to keep other people guessing. And I think that really helps Latavius Murray as well. Not just Latavius Murray's talent, but also what Sean Payton was able to do with more of that old dog. He doesn't do as much, but he keeps those schemes really still confusing the defense.
Yeah, his system is a system where you can just plug and play a running back.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All right, moving on to my number 3, David Montgomery, Chicago Bears. The high hope rookie of last season fallen to mediocrity in like 2 or 3 games. High upside. What do you want from running back? No committee, huge volume, run heavy offense. And they have that. They just have quarterback controversy no matter what happens there. They aren't really going to be as much of a pass catching offense. They're a huge defensive side team, which means they're going to run the ball a lot. And he's got to get that bulk. And this is the high risk where if he gets that bulk and he exceeds what we thought he was going to do, or he exceeds what he did last year, or what I had that lined up. What we thought he was going to do last year, if he does it this year, he's going to be great. If he exceeds what he did last year, he's going to be great because he's going to get that volume. He would be that effective, and they're going to rely more on the running back if he, does what we expected him to do. And I know that Matt Nagy, he may have strayed away from him because he wasn't being as effective. People were complaining, like, give him more carries. I'm like, if he's not getting as much carries, that means they really don't believe in him. But they have him there. He has a season to get a second chance, and I think his risk with the volume that he's going to get, he could have a huge potential output to win your season.
Yeah, I mean, the reason he had so much hype last season is because he was going to get that volume on the ground. Jordan Howard filled. There's a big void for Montgomery to fill on the ground, and plus he had the receiving ability. He just didn't. He wasn't utilized in that way last season. So if he gets some more receiving work and he becomes more efficient on the ground, he could definitely be a top 12 running back because he's going to get that volume. And there's quotes from Matt Nagy last season saying that he just strayed away from the run too much and that they were passing too much, and he wanted to get the run game more involved. So now in year two, sometimes rookies aren't always great as running backs. Sometimes it takes them just a little bit longer, and he could really step up in year two. And yeah, I mean, I think he definitely has the upside to fulfill what we hoped he could do last year.
Yeah. All right.
My next guy I have is Marquise Hollywood Brown. So, of the Baltimore Ravens, of course, this is the team that had Lamar Jackson, MVP of last season. If I don't know if you guys followed Marquise Brown coming into the draft, but Marquise Brown, his college career ended because of a Lisfranc injury, and he had a procedure done on that. In his rookie year, he played through the pain, and it was nagging him all year. And after 2019, Brown had surgery recently to remove a screw from that previous foot surgery, and he said that he feels way faster, and that should eliminate any complications moving forward with his foot. And he was fast last year, and he said he feels much faster this year. And this is what Lamar Jackson said. They got together. They've been throwing around recently, and he said about Marquise Brown. Lamar Jackson said, "I feel like he's going to have a huge jump, more than many people think." He was hurt last year. People didn't know that, but he was out there battling his tail off each and every game on a messed up foot. And now his potential is going to show this year. I feel he's still young, but he's going to show off. And my job is to get the ball out quicker because he's a lot faster with that foot at 100%. So, Marquise Brown, he's the number one wide receiver for Lamar Jackson. We expect Lamar Jackson to run the ball less, so there should be more volume in the air too. And when you look at the receiving core, they got Mark Andrews, great tight end. But outside of that, they have Miles Boykin and Willie Snead and the rookie Devin Duvernay they drafted later. He's definitely the top alpha dog, and he could command 25% of the team market share in targets. And, I mean, he could get 110, 120 targets potentially, and I hope his offense passes more for his sake. But he doesn't even need it to because, like I said, he's so far and away better than the other receivers on the team. He could get a lot of targets, and he's so fast. They drafted him in the first round. They believe in him, and Lamar Jackson likes him. He actually Marquise Brown only played 75% of snaps 3 times last season. The injury was bothering him. The Ravens managed him a little bit better. I mean, because, they didn't want him to be hurt, and he missed a couple of games too. But we saw week 1 what he could do when he absolutely exploded. He had a great game in the playoffs too. We've seen his potential, and that's what you want to see. You want to see those flashes out of a rookie wide receiver, and he definitely has that chance to step up and be a top wide receiver. And we saw, he looks so similar to Deshaun Jackson, the smaller, really speedy guy. And Deshaun Jackson, in his second year in the NFL, he finished as a top 5 wide receiver. I don't think many people know that because people just think he's just like a speedster. But I think that Marquise Brown is going to be used a lot on deep and intermediate routes and even short. I think he's going to be used all over as the true number one wide receiver. So I think, like I said, Deshaun Jackson finished top 5 wide receiver. I think he probably had more volume. But Marquise Brown, I think he could finish as a top 12 wide receiver, and I don't think that's really a stretch at all.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing else more to say. What can be better for a wide receiver and a quarterback that believes in you. I mean, if you have a quarterback that says these high hopes for you, that already believes in you prior to the season, that's only going to strengthen their chemistry and give that wide receiver the belief, one, that he can do it, as well as having, Lamar Jackson's not too much older, but having that guidance towards, if he's ever stressed out, ever concerned about his performance, you have that second guy that's just right there saying, "You got this, dude. No worries." And that belief from a quarterback, I think it's underrated. If you have this chemistry, these wide receivers that excel, it's not just their talent, but also the quarterback that trusts in them fully and wants them and believes in them to do better. I mean, I could point out Tyler Lockett. I mean, I think a lot of his plays last year came from trust over Tyler Lockett could do. You could have Julian Edelman with Tom Brady. I mean, I know I'm a Patriots fan, but to be honest, Julian Edelman might not have started as the most skilled wide receiver, but I think that more trust from Tom Brady and the growth that he had in that chemistry rather than what he was naturally able to do at the beginning was because of that belief from a quarterback. I mean, you could go on and on and on, but belief from a quarterback is just as important as any skill set a wide receiver has.
Right, exactly. And now that they've lost Hayden Hurst, that frees up a little bit more targets. And we don't. I think we all expect Lamar Jackson to throw a little bit more. So they were last in the league last year. If they even make a slight jump, I mean, Marquise Brown, he's all he needs is one big play really to have a great week in fantasy because of his explosiveness.
Think Tyreek Hill. I mean, you get him because his consistency now, as well as at the beginning, he would have 2-3 catches a game, but he still have like 120 yards just because of his boom potential. And if he gets any more consistent, Marquise Brown, not a million.
Yeah, that's a great comp right there. And Lamar Jackson said he's been working on his deep ball this year too. So I mean, you got the two former MVPs right there, and then they each have a super fast speed guy on an explosive offense. You can see the potential touchdown and those big plays. So he could have a lot of touchdowns and a lot of yards, and maybe not quite as many catches as like a guy like Robert Woods, but in standard he's more valuable. But he could still finish as a top 5 receiver without the volume because of what they can do on a single play.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Moving on to my number 4 pick. We have Kareem Hunt with the Cleveland Browns. And I think this is a pretty self-explanatory type, high risk, high reward. If one of those running backs goes down, the other one is going to get the bulk of the carries, obviously, and they're both super talented running backs. So if Kareem Hunt goes down, Nick Chubb's going to have a similar season the way he did before Kareem Hunt came, or even better because, he's been in the league longer. And Kareem Hunt, we already know how talented he was with the Chiefs. If Nick Chubb goes down, he's going to have an amazing year. And I think, to be honest, Kareem Hunt might even have a better pass catching capability. So having that person there, there's already going to be swinging the ball. If one even gets knocked a little bit, one of them's bound to score.
Yeah, and like I mentioned with Latavius Murray, I think Kareem Hunt, I think he has more value than Latavius Murray when both guys are healthy, when both starters are healthy. But yeah, the Kareem Hunt, he's got that same upside. We call this a layup. Like Latavius Murray and Kareem Hunt, they're just these very easy to spot upside guys because they're the clear cut backup on an offense that uses the running back a lot. So yeah, it's very easy to see Kareem Hunt's very talented, more talented than Latavius Murray, but not quite as good of an offense. But yeah, he's a great target if you want somebody who could give you that league winning upside.
Yeah, and I mean, just another note, they bolstered the offensive line if they had any concern there. A balanced offense. I mean, you have run heavy, but I mean, to be honest, a balanced offense where you really don't know where the ball is going to go, that could help if they want to lead towards running back. But if they've been spreading the ball around a lot, every touch that Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb is going to get, I feel like they're going to be super effective with it.
Yeah, and now Stefanski's there. They're probably going to run the ball more potentially.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to my last guy here, and this is kind of another one that is one of those really late round guys that you might be able to get towards the end of your draft, and that is Antonio Gibson. This is the Redskins running back core right now. Of course, you got Darius Geis. He's the starter right there. We've seen that he has been very fragile. There's also Adrian Peterson Bryce Love, and Peyton Barber. So they have 5 running backs, and one of them is most likely going to get cut because most teams run with 4 guys, and it could be Adrian Peterson or Peyton Barber. I'd expect to be one of those two. But Bryce Love, let's talk about him if the Darius guys were to go down. So Bryce Love, he ran for 2,000 plus yards at 8 yards per carry in 2017. It was crazy, but in 2018 though, he didn't play nearly as well, and he tore his ACL like in the last game of the season. And not to mention, when talking about receiving upside, Bryce Love, when he ran for 2,000 yards, he only caught 6 passes. So he's not the kind of guy who's excels in the receiving game. And yeah, Washington drafted him in the 4th round. They knew he wasn't going to be there for 2019. And historically, when a player's coming off their first season off an ACL injury, they're just not nearly as productive. You got to think these are guys, the best of the best in football, elite athletes. So to get not only that endurance, but also that play strength back, in the locker room, he wasn't able to do that for a while. So he's not going to be 100%. I don't think that he's going to be better than Antonio Gibson this year. And then you got Adrian Peterson, he's been solid, but he's 35. He's 35 years old now, and he isn't really a pass catcher. Peyton Barber also isn't a pass catcher. We saw as more of that bruiser guy for the Bucks. And like I said, one of them is probably going to get cut too. So if Darius Guice gets hurt, Antonio Gibson, he has a chance to win that job. I already think he's going to be the pass catching guy. But Gibson was the 2nd pick in the 3rd round last year. He mostly played wide receiver actually in college, but he had some carries too. When he did get carries, though, he actually averaged 11 yards per carry just to show his explosiveness, right? He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, and he's 230 pounds, very explosive, and he can catch the ball. And that's pretty rare. That's only 10 pounds lighter than Derrick Henry. Ron Rivera actually compared him to Christian McCaffrey. I mean, yes, that might be a little bit of a stretch skill set wise, but he's actually bigger and faster than McCaffrey, Antonio Gibson. He's 230 pounds and has very good speed. I mean, that's the kind of guys that get drafted high like Jonathan Taylor, but he's even a better pass catcher. So he has that upside. If he were to win that starting job, like we saw the Redskins, I mean, it's just a straight up Redskins example. Of course, the Washington football team now, but Alfred Morris, he took over rookie year and he was great. I think Antonio Gibson might not be as quite as good as a runner, but he's a great wide receiver. And this is a team I expect to be playing from behind. I don't think they're going to be a great team this year. And Antonio Gibson, he could get that starting job if Geis went down and had that pass catching work.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could say is, like, imagine, to me, I don't want to knock on wood, be a less injury-prone Chris Thompson as, like, his floor, I would think. I mean, Chris Thompson, amazing pass catcher. Antonio Gibson, amazing pass catcher. And then if he gets any block of the run, then he's just succeeded to flourish. I think that they're probably going to end up cutting Peyton Barber if I was to make a guess with what AP's already contributed to the team. But Darius Geis, they're going to start with him. We can see he's amazing if he plays like more than one game. But he could easily take away that backfield, like run away, run home with it, do whatever he wants. Literally run home with the backfield. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, I think Chris Thompson, that could be his floor. And he's just so much bigger and faster than Chris Thompson too. So that's awesome. And he's bigger than Darius Geis too. Like everybody thinks Darius Geis is huge. He's a pretty good sized running back, but Gibson, it's crazy how big and fast he is. So his upside is just tremendous.
And that offensive line is pretty decent. I mean, I know like AP still kind of had it, but I mean you can thank a lot of that offensive line for giving that old guy the work that he was able to do the past few seasons with all those injuries. So they definitely aren't in any area of concern there. I know they lost Trent Williams, but they didn't really play with him the past year, and they still did really well. So, I mean, their left tackle probably isn't as great, but I think they'll definitely manage. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Moving on to the last player, my number 5, and sort of another reach beyond what the other players we've mentioned is Marvin Jones Jr. of the Detroit Lions. And, this is a guy that, has always been in the back, unnoticed area. And he's just been flourishing. And he's been kind of second to Kenny Golladay. You hear Kenny Golladay, you don't hear Marvin Jones. But they've been splitting the ball pretty consistently. And if Kenny Galladay goes down at all, you can have Marvin Jones have a huge breakout type games. I mean, he was still averaging, I think, one of the highest yards per game last year with where he was. I had that stat in the video. I'm thinking it was like 60, 55, 70, something like that. Um, and he was more of a, uh, it was like a Chris Godwin, Mike Evans type duo. One had a little more touchdowns, one didn't. And he's just, I think he's severely underrated for his value. And you could get him in the sixth, seventh round, maybe even later, depending on people that know who he is, know who he's not. And it's just huge boom potential if anything happens to Kenny Galladay, as well as Matthew Stafford being an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he is a perennially underrated player in fantasy football. And so last season before Marvin Jones got injured, he was right there with Kenny Galladay within like a point per game as
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Galladay. And Kenny Galladay, is going second, third round. Marvin Jones is going like ninth round. He's already a great value. But yeah, I mean, if Kenny Galladay did go down, Marvin Jones could step in. We've already seen he has a lot of touchdown upside. The thing is with him is the reason he's undervalued probably is because of his consistency. He busts a lot, but he also has those big boom games that win you a week. He's had 4 touchdown games, I think twice. I think he's the only player or the second player to do that on 2 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a great red zone threat. He could be a top 20 wide receiver, and who knows if he has an even better touchdown year, he could potentially bring in that top 15, top 12. If Matt Stafford, if he comes back, that pace that he was before the injury.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's like you said, if Kenny Galladay got hurt, then that would just help him even more to be a league winner.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the boomer bust. I mean, yeah, Kenny Galladay, if he goes, that bust floor that he has definitely raises to where he's going to not really have that anymore. He might not exceed in a game, but yeah, it's definitely more. If you take him, one, he could still be great with Kenny Galladay, and two, if Kenny Galladay leaves, you just move him up your ranks.
Right. Yeah, and just to illustrate his inconsistency, like I really like him. He's a value, but his consistency. So week 6, he had 3 points. The next week, he had 43, and then after that, he had 6 points, and then 26. It's just crazy. 43. That was like one of his best games. That's when he had 4 touchdowns actually. But yeah, that just shows his inconsistency. But yeah, if Kenny Galladay gets hurt, those inconsistent weeks, the floor of them, goes a little bit higher with a higher target count.
Yeah.
And that would be a great wide receiver to have, somebody who can win you weeks and has a little bit of a higher floor. Yeah, he'd be much more intriguing.
Yeah, a matchup receiver at the very least for on your bench. But huge ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that does it for the episode. Thank you guys very much for joining us. It was nice to be back, talk some fantasy football, and man, I am so ready for football. I think it's less than 50 days away. Can you believe that?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like we talked a good amount this episode. I feel like we got a lot of our thoughts out from being off a little bit, but it was definitely fun to get back into things, and I can't wait for what we talk about in the future.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys like what you've heard, you guys can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FFFanatics11. You guys, please follow us. Our Instagram page has been growing. Our Twitter page, we're getting that growing too. And also subscribe to us on YouTube. That's kind of mainly where we've been at. I would like to expand more to get some Spotify, Stitcher sometime in the future to listen. But drop it in the comment section if you can, and you can ask us questions. Tell us if you prefer to watch on YouTube or listen on a Spotify, a Stitcher. But we're also on Podbean if you want to listen to just the audio. Podbean for the Fantasy Football Fanatics. And thank you guys very much, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and I think one more thing before we go is that if you want to comment what you want to see, as well as what topics you might want us to cover. I mean, I think we'd definitely be open to covering whatever you guys want us to talk about, want to know about. We love researching whatever we can, and it's just we want to get to know, a lot more of our fan base if it is going on YouTube or on other sites, and it's really fun and exciting process to go through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See you guys later.